This episode of the Conversation Podcast is brought to you by Uniweb.com, your one-stop solution for cutting-edge software development and AI-driven technology. Our guest is someone who has mastered the craft behind the lens, Brando Cox. As a cinematographer, he's worked on films featuring Hollywood heavyweights like Robert De Niro, Dave Bautista, Bruce Willis, Nicolas Cage, and Sylvester Stallone. From high-stake thrillers like Heist and Marauders to action-packed films like Escape Plan 2 and Cutthroat City, Brandon has built a reputation for creating bold and immersive visuals that bring stories to life. Today, we're going behind the camera to talk about Brandon's journey, his creative process, and what it really takes to be a cinematographer in Hollywood. Stick around. This is going to be a great conversation. Mr. Cox, how are you?
I'm wonderful, buddy. How are you? It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. I want to thank you so much for finally taking some time to get on this podcast. I really appreciate it, bro.
Oh, dude, I appreciate being here. It's a blessing being here. And I know we had a family member on a few weeks ago. He had Mr. Kane on, and I saw that, and I was like, oh man, oh that's cool. You asked me to come on, and I said yes, please. I wanted to be here, so I appreciate it.
You're a very important cinematographer in my career, and on numerous levels. So why don't you go ahead and tell the audience who you are, what your background is, and your journey.
Oh, sure. Thanks. My name is Brando Cox. I'm a cinematographer, filmmaker. Originally from Silver Spring, Maryland, Gaithersburg, Maryland. Grew up there and nestled in North Carolina. And then when I was a child, I was an artist. I drew a lot. I wanted to be a comic book illustrator. But I always watched movies, lots of movies. My father took us into movies, and really, everybody says, "Oh, what's the first movie you remember seeing in the movie theater?" And for my first movie, I remember seeing in the movie theater and actually wanting to understand what was going on, like meaning not what the movie was about, but how they were making the movie, the process of making a movie. And back in whenever that was, 1980, 1981, they didn't really have any behind the scenes like they do now. But for the particular movie that I saw, which was Raiders of the Lost Ark, they had something that was on a special at night at like 8 p.m. on CBS or something like that. How they made Raiders of the Lost Ark, and so I saw the movie. I was blown away by the movie, and my dad's like, well, I said, well, how'd they do that? Well, let's go see it again. So we saw it again, and still it was as better as it was the first time, and then we saw it again, and then that special came on, and I was just like hooked by like, oh, that's how they did that sequence, that's how that guy jumped on the truck, that's how that. So yeah, it was that was like always loving movies and wanting to know how they made the movie. And then from then on, I would continue to watch movies, continue to draw. And then it wasn't until when I was in high school, I had some friends. Well, I'd say junior high. Let me back up, like junior high school. I met a friend on the bus, and we started tossing of all places. And we started talking, and we became friends at school. And he's like, "Hey, you seem like a pretty fun guy. Do you like to make movies?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I have this film camera. You want to go make like little movies with toys and stuff, so stop motion." So we did that, and then we started making live action movies. And then we put the film camera down because his dad got one of those big VHS, things. We got one of those. It was easier. We could see it. We didn't have to set up the film. And we did that just as a hobby in high school, and then till high school, and then we all went off to go to college. I went to art school because I wanted to draw, so I got a scholarship to art school in Savannah, Georgia. And then I quickly realized that once I got there, comic books wasn't what I wanted to do. So on a whim, I took a film class. And then from that film class, that was it. I was like, I have to do this. And then, this was like the early 90s. And then around 95, I believe, it's like 1995, I went to the movies. I saw Seven.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized, okay, I want to be a cinematographer because I'd never seen something that was so beautiful yet terrifying and almost felt tactile when you watch the film. How dark it was, how the vision Fincher created and Darius Kanji, the just mood and how everything looked and the lighting, and I just was like, I have to do this. So, and then seeing Schindler's List, which that movie really just showed me the power of like filmmaking of how you could take something and really viscerally put the audience there. And then seeing Saving Private Ryan, that was sort of like put the cherry on top. That I was like, all right, I have to do this. Right. While all that time was going on, I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, which they call SCAD. I went to SCAD for a couple of years, dropped out, sort of worked, watched movies, did all that. And then I got back into school, like a junior college, got some credits back up. And then by that time, I wanted to transfer to USC. That was like, I wanted to go to USC. I thought I had to go to USC. But then I found out about this graduate program at AFI, American Film Institute. There was a special on television about like honors a filmmaker, and it happened to be Spielberg. And at the end of the thing, they do this whole spiel on the American Film Institute is a nonprofit organization, blah blah blah, and it has a school, and they talk about the school, whatever. They have a big ad for the school. So I was like, oh, what's that place? And so I had to do some digging because the internet was very new back then. And so then I found out about that. I found out that a lot of the big cinematographers, filmmakers that I was sort of gravitating to went to that school. So then I started watching more movies, and
Oh,
then
wow.
again, yeah, still, going working side jobs and doing that. And then I decided, well, I wanted to go to USC, but I realized like I didn't have the right credits from art school and all that. So I went and checked on my old art school, and by that time, there was like I think it was like almost like a 8 or 9 year period, which I had left, and by that time they got all this film equipment, all this editing equipment. So I was like, I can go to this school, be a big fish in a little pond, and just shoot everything and take in everything, which is what I did. So I went back to art school, shot everybody's project, did everything I could, learned sound, editing, cinematography, focused in cinematography, and still drew actually, did storyboards and whatnot. And then graduated from there. And in the meantime, I applied to American Film Institute, got in. And so immediately once I finished in Savannah, packed up my stuff, drove cross country, started AFI in the fall, did that for 2 years, met some of my best friends, my buddy Seamus Tierney, who worked on second unit on Heist with us. And just so many people there. And from there, I've forged those relationships, just which I still keep today. But from going to the American Film Institute, you're put into almost a real life working situation to where you have to work with people you've never worked with before, and they try to create sort of an atmosphere of what it's like to work in the industry as best as they can, obviously. And what that does is it teaches you how to work with a group, how to work with a writer, a director, a production designer, a cinematographer, an editor, because they have all those key positions there that people go. And it's a very small school, very tight knit school, it's only like 200 people. You learn how to work in that environment for 2 years. You do that, and then from that moment, I had a classmate of mine who was from Norway, and he loved music videos. That's what he wanted to do. That's commercials and music video. That's what he keyed on. And he left early. He left the first year because he got an opportunity to go back to Europe. And he said, listen, if I come back, would you want to work with me? Like camera operate, whatever. I said, yeah, sure. And he went off for about a year, came back, said, I need a place to stay. So I'd stay with me. And within a week, he's like, hey, I got this. I got my first music video in America. Do you want to come operate? And I just got out of school. Yeah, I'd shoot anything at that point. I said, yeah, sure. And then it happened again. And it happened again. And he was giving me like $300, $400. And he's like, come with me to like the color. Come with me to I'll see. I was, of course, that's like free, information. So I had gathered enough footage of all these videos that I was, because they were using everything I was shooting. So he would shoot main unit, and I would go off with another director, and we would shoot like B-roll stuff, but they were using all of it. And so he was having double the footage, and all these directors like, how are you doing this? It was like, oh, I have this guy in school, he shoots this. And so one of the producers asked me, she said, hey, let's go to lunch. So we went to lunch, and she's like, hey, listen, you should really be shooting movies, or you should really be shooting on your own. You should get an agent. I can help you. And sure. So I met this agent, and then within a couple of weeks, I started shooting my own music videos. And from the music videos, then my goal ultimately was always to get into movies. And so that then led me onto a movie career. And thus, here we are.
How long
Mhm.
was the process of all this until your first movie?
Because I left school and I had that period, it would have probably been less. But it was probably from the first feature. Let's see, I graduated high school 92. I went to art school for 2 years. It was 94. Then I quit for like 4 years. Then I went back and see, so I went to AFI 2000. I mean, it was a long time, man. I mean, but when I started shooting professionally from 2004 to about 2008 or nine, somewhere in there, I did music videos and commercials. I think it was like 2008. I got my first feature. It was a go, man. It was a grind. And then, then it started. I couldn't get the right features I wanted, or I was trying. I did a few, and then finally, I think it was like 2014 when, you know, the
Wow.
Mr. Scott Mann knocked on my door and was like, "Hey, I got this script called Buzz 657," and that's when we met. So it was a while. It was a good grind for 10 years doing music videos.
How did
You
Scott
know,
find you?
through my agent of all people. My agent called me and said, "I have this film. I think I like Robert De Niro." And I said,
Oh my God.
"Oh, I said, back up. What am I? You found this film and they have Robert De Niro. Yeah, just stop right there. I don't care who else is in that movie." But yeah, we had Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Gina Carano, Dave Bautista, Morris Chestnut. Um, who do I miss? MP, Mark Paul Gosselaar,
Yeah.
and you, and
Well, thank you.
you were the writer, which was
Yes,
cool.
yes.
And it
Thank you.
was, I mean, what an opportunity. And I knew, because I'd done, I think, 2 or 3 movies at that point and a lot of music videos, but they wanted somebody fast. They wanted somebody, they had a little edge to their work. And I thought my agent thought I had a little edge, and they showed Scott, and Scott really responded to it. So I had a Skype call, it wasn't Zoom call, so I had to think about that. Yeah, we had a, or maybe it was an iPhone call. I don't remember, but maybe I think it was Skype. So we had like a couple hour Skype call, talked about the movie, what we wanted to do, and within a couple months, I was I was in Mobile, Alabama, man, and we were prepping that movie.
That is
You
so
know,
crazy to me. So Bus 657 was your ma first major movie, really?
that was my yeah, well, I did a movie. I did a movie prior to that, this horror movie called The Collector, right? And
Uh-huh,
that did
yeah,
really
yeah.
well. And that was like my first big movie, or major movie. This one was with, I'd say, with the biggest movie stars I'd worked with before. So yeah, I mean
I got
that
you.
was yeah, that's fair to say.
So how was the transition going from music videos? How many days was a music video, the transition to film? How many days did you shoot your first couple of films?
Let's see, the first the first movie I did, they were around. The first movie I did was around 30 days, maybe 28 days, and it was on film. You know,
Wow.
and then the second one I did was The Collector. That was all on film. That was on Super 16. That one was, I think, 20 days principal, and then we went back and we reshot. So when it all was all said and done, it was like 29, something like that.
Yeah.
And then when we got the Heist, aka Bus 657, that was what, 19 days, I think.
19 and then kind of 4 or 5 days of
Couple
extra.
extra, 22, 23, but they were around that. So in your 20s, high 20s, nothing like
It,
the fun thing we did with Deadlock. Remember that? That's a whole. We'll get there. So, baby steps.
oh my God. Oh my God. So, the one thing I've noticed about you is that you have been able to work consistently. And regardless of the politics that a producer or writer or director goes through, you have been able to maneuver through the industry, and God bless you for doing so, and really working with a lot of great names as actors. Now, the first thing is, man, there's so much to unpack here because
Yeah.
it's the actors you work with, it's the
Hmm.
directors you worked with,
Hmm.
it's when you had to step up and really save the director, and on and on and on and on and on. It just keeps going. But so how much were you involved in post on Bus 657?
I was involved with the color. I saw a few cuts of that. I wasn't super involved in that at what they were cutting. I was more basically in the color side of things. So I would see a cut, give them my notes. Whether they would listen or not, that was up to them. But mainly in the color, that was where I was most involved with coloring the movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes I listen, sometimes I don't. So,
Sometimes they don't. Yeah, so after Bus 657 came out,
Mhm.
what was the trajectory of your career?
I mean, I felt at that moment, God, it's like seems like fucking 10 years ago almost, what I'm saying? It's like, and the industry's changed so much from 10 years, right?
Oh, yes. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like I felt like I could do anything. I was like, shit, man, I just shot this movie in a bus for 3 weeks. I mean, hey, I could do anything. And I felt like I could. And I just wanted to, just stay busy and just keep going and meet good people and just keep, trying different things. And right after that, I met Stephen Miller, and that's when uh, one of the executive producers, Tim introduced me to Stephen. We went and talked. That's when we got my first Bruce Willis movie, which was Extraction. Again, it was like, okay, Robert De Niro, Bruce Willis, so it was again, like people that we admired when we were growing up. But just
Oh,
but
totally.
the catch with that film was, it was I think it was like a 17 or 18-day shoot. The whole problem of the whole thing is, yeah, we got Bruce, and you think you're making a Bruce Willis movie, but you're making a Bruce Willis movie with Bruce for one day. And so you have to then shoot the beginning, all the stuff in the middle, and the end of the movie on the very first day of the movie, which I don't know about you, it's the most nerve-wracking thing ever.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
learned very quickly how to do that. And to Steven's credit, like we planned and planned and planned and planned and figured out how to do this because to that point, I think we only we had De Niro for what 5 days, 40 a week or something
Oh,
like that when we
yeah.
did
Yeah.
Bus,
Yeah.
right?
5 days. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but even that was I still felt comfortable with him because he was there, he was in it, and he would do. There was a shot I'll never forget this. There's a shot in Bus 657 where he's sitting at a desk, and it was a shot of his hands. And I said I could use a double. He's like, no, 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 I'll do it. It's all right, I'll do it. So he did it, and I was like, that's cool. The guy does his own insert shots. So, but even that, it was like there was no craziness with Bruce. It was, I always just felt like it was it was on a clock. I had to keep going. I did. Time was against you, and so you were. It was very rushed. But in that whole process of how crazy that whole, I think it was something like I think we did. I don't know how many pages and we did it in like 17 or 18 hours or something like that. That was like the deal. Like production eats the cost and you just do it. And in that whole thing, I became really good friends with him. And so if you could see on my IMDb, I've done, quite a few movies with Bruce, whether I was the DP or I wasn't, they would still, as my career went along with him, his health slowly started to decline. At that point, I didn't know what was going on because Bruce was still fine at that point. Um, and I wasn't aware of what was going on. I think everybody was. And, but from there, it just started to slowly decline anyway. But, from that, then Steven and I did another movie, which was called Marauders. It was another bank heist movie. And again, we came back with Dave Bautista came in and Chris Maloney and Jonathan Sheck and Bruce. And we did it again. And again, that was Bruce. We got it down to like 14 hours. And then finally Bruce would start doing 2 days or 3 days and we'd break his work into 8-hour bits. So we did that in this movie we did with Bruce, First Kill was another movie. And yeah, we'd work him one day, just everything in the city. And then the next day we would do everything like in the woods that we had, or then something else, and they had to double, we'd use his double and whatnot. So it was you learn, and each one of these films, like I said, Heist was what, 19, 20 days with some extra days. Then Extraction was 17, 18 days. Then Marauders became 16 days. And then Arsenal became 14 days. And then this movie became 14 days. So what was happening was the days were getting, the weeks to shoot the movie were getting shorter and shorter. And they're asking for, Lethal Weapon 5. It's like, guys, it's not going to happen. You got too much movie and not enough time to shoot the movie. You know what I mean?
There's this thing where you're explaining that you went from shooting music videos to shooting a
Mm-hmm.
film with Robert De Niro to
Mm-hmm.
shooting a film with Bruce Willis. And then obviously your stock is rising as a cinematographer in the business. No
Right.
question about
Right.
that. But then what happens is the production company or companies and folks start reducing the days and asking more and more of you,
Yeah.
knowing that you are friends with the star or you can work with the star or stars.
Mm-hmm.
The pendulum kind of swings the other way a little bit now because now your value is a lot more than when they started. At first, you were a good DP and, talented. Then you became a technician on how to shoot these movies with this crew. What happened there for you as an artist as you started doing 4 or 5 of these? And is there something that went into your mind thinking, how do I navigate this? Or you just kept going?
There's a little bit of both. I was trying, Steven and I, because Steven and I got a succession of these films, we were trying to make good movies, always trying to make a good movie, trying to make something special. And what ended up happening on the production side or the producing side of things was they wanted to make widgets. They wanted to just, you know, just take this budget and put it on this movie and then take this budget and you know as well as I do, you can't take one budget from a movie and then take that different movie and just keep, it just doesn't work. Now, telling those two bozos I used to work with, um, you know, they don't understand that. And I raised my voice about this a couple of times actually, and I was shot down and told that, we've produced 98 movies and what do you know? And I said, well, I know because I fucking make the damn things and I know what, I know how to do this. I'm not saying I'm the know-it-all, but I'm just saying I basically, I don't know if you know this. I wrote them a letter
No, I
after
don't.
after Bus. I wrote them a letter, really professional email. I wrote this letter saying, because I used to work with Jason Blum a lot. I would come in and he'd shoot a movie and then they'd need me to come sort of like patch up the movie and put more footage in it. And I had a really good relationship with the Blumhouse people. They were great. And Jason was awesome and really nice to me. And the one thing he did well, regardless of whether you like the way he made movies or not, he always gave the filmmakers 27 days. Yeah, your budget was limited, but you could make a good movie, you know? You can make a good movie in 25, 27 days. You get the movie in the can. And so in this letter, I wrote, hey, these are a few things that are sort of like bothering me. And I used Blumhouse as a model because I said, you guys could be the Blumhouse of action movies. And I wasn't saying that in a mean way. I was saying that in a good way. I'm trying to help these guys. I'm trying to help these guys get to that level of where Jason was. Because regardless of whether you like the movies or not, these movies were making money. They're making a lot and they were in the theater. And so I thought these guys could be like the Blumhouse action movies. Because look, you can get stars. You put a good production together and you can make a good movie. And so I put this thing together, sent it off. Like 2 days later, I was shunned and put the big scarlet letter on my thing. Like, how dare you? You don't tell us what to do. You're nobody. We're these guys. So I knew there. I was like, all right, whatever. And then it was on the set of Marauders, actually. Where it was Bruce's couple days, and he shook Bruce's hand, shook Steven's hand. I went up to him, he wouldn't shake my hand, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, bro, what's going on here?" And then the day went throughout, and I tried to talk to him, and then finally I just took him to the side and said, "Excuse my language." I said, "What the fuck is your problem, bro?" I said, "You're not going to shake my hand." I don't at that point because it was like, who cares? I mean, he's a pit bull or something. No. And I just said, what's the deal? And he was like, well, that letter. I said, man, why are you upset about that? I'm trying to help you, dude. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you put a better product to make more money, of all things, right? Who doesn't want to make more money? And so, to answer your question, it even though I was working on these movies, and even though I was getting exposure to these movie stars and constantly working, it was also putting me in a hole because those are the only kind of movies you can make. You know, when somebody says that in the industry, that sort of like glue. It sticks to you, and people are like, "Oh, well, he just makes those. He just makes those low budget action movies. That's all he can do," which is absolutely not true. You know,
Absolutely not true.
and it sort of happened to Steven, and it happened to me, and so we were known as like those. Oh, those are the Bruce Willis guys, or and nobody takes those movies serious.
So I can relate to what you're talking about when it comes to being almost stereotyped as a, low budget filmmaker, whatnot.
Yeah,
I've had meetings with some really big, like, executives and managers that represent some big people. And I don't think what they say, they meaning the people who say you make this kind of movie, you make that kind of movie. I don't think they even know what the fuck they're talking about
they don't.
because
They don't.
they have no clue. Because the reality is the things that you're talking about here, when it comes to filmmaking, you're limited. Your hands are tied. You're trying to make the best. You're trying to run the ball with one hand and one hand tied behind your back to the fucking end zone.
Exactly.
And when you get it across the end zone, you got these, industry folks who, it's a whole other story, but you got these reviewers who are saying, oh, another cheap blah blah movie, another this, another that. It's like, bro, like you couldn't even take step one that a
No.
guy like Cox does on a set where you have the courage to even say stupid shit like this because it's stupid because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
90% of like 99% of film reviewers are have no idea how to make a movie, and let alone know what each position does. Because I love reading reviews of like when they'll talk about it, and they're really talking about the cinematography, but yet they're talking about the editing, or they're talking about it's like, what are you talking about, man? You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You can't even talk intelligently about a movie because you
Right.
don't even understand the process. So
Right.
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
so
interrupt
no,
you.
absolutely. And look, the thing is, these people, like I talked to this one guy who works with some like the big names of Brad Pitt, Will Smith, this, that,
Sure,
and the other. And
sure.
I'm like, oh, and then, well, we make these kinds of movies and we don't make these independent. So just because you made a movie and you were fortunate enough to make a movie with De Niro, Bruce Willis, these other cats who are iconic names in the industry. Now
Yeah,
all of a sudden you're in this little box that they put you in. That's, oh yeah, you're an independent action. These movies, B movies. All of a sudden you become a B movie, and it's like, I have to say, just from rationale and perspective, because of people who like yourself, you made a dozen plus of these movies and they come and they judge it, yet they are producer number 26, executive producer, waiting for a paycheck that a studio or somebody else is going to make 5 years along the way. Maybe that movie gets made, and there you are being judged by a guy who doesn't even fucking make movies.
yeah,
So how do you rationalize? And then what they do is they keep saying it, and then you're like, well, yeah, oh, okay, well, yeah, and almost like they thrown their nose at you, like in a sense of
yeah,
you're not good enough. And look, man, it is a boys' club. The higher studio game, it's all good if you're lucky
yeah.
enough. I've had screenplays where I gave it to somebody at Paramount, major player. It's like, dude, I love this script. This is a great script. I can't make it because unless you have Scorsese who wants to make it, that's the only reason. That's the only way I can make this.
Right, of course, of course.
So that's the game. And
Yeah,
when I talk to people about, do you take? I was talking to John Keys. I said, do you take? What's your thing of taking a good project? Is it a screenplay? Is it a story? Or is it a product, a packaging? He goes, unfortunately, after he molded over, he goes, it's a product. Like we're making products. And I don't like saying that, but that's what it is. So,
yeah. No, it is, and it's the thing that also just it is frustrating because like you look at like what I've done. And I'm not saying like I'm reinventing the wheel or anything, but just if you were to take a filmmaker that's used to having, 80, 70, 90 days on a film set, put them in my shoes, see if they could do what they could do. I guarantee you they couldn't do it.
No, they cannot. They
If
cannot.
they were given the tools that I have and the time that I have, I know they'd freak out. Like I'm not kidding you. I had an interview with somebody that worked for a pretty big filmmaker, and he is going to do his own movie, but he's had tons of experience and good budget, probably like almost $20 million. And because he's been working with this filmmaker, well-known, huge filmmaker, that's always gets everything he wants, all this stuff. He's looking at me and he's like, "Well, I don't know if I could do this for this amount of money and this amount of time." And I was like, "Are you kidding me, man? This is you can make a good movie with this. What are you talking about?" "Well, I don't know if I can make a good movie." "How many days do you have?" He's like, 45. I'm like, "Come on, man. What are we talking about here? That's exactly what I need. That's what you need. 45 days. This is perfect." And the way you look at things is like perfect examples. Like the last movie we ended up doing with them was Escape Plan 2. And this is the one where we thought, okay, we got to work with Stallone. We brought Batista in because Arnold, we for some reason we couldn't get him, so we ended up getting Batista and a couple other people, and the budget was good, and we could build sets and all of this stuff, and for some reason, it still was like 18 days, and we were like, what the hell is going on here? Why? Where did all the days go? Where's all the money going? And they were taking that money out of the movie and putting it in something else. And so we were then restricted to 18 days to make that movie. The point I was trying to make was once we finished that, and it was such a like, we had high hopes for that movie, and it was a gigantic disappointment. And because again, right off the bat, you get these reviewers, oh, the B movie, this or the B movie that it right even before you even would get into the article about reading a review on the movie, they automatically just tagged you're a B movie. And because of the stench that came with those two producers. So that was frustrating. But once we got away from them and we went and did a movie with Aaron Eckhart, that Line of Duty movie, it's sort of that started to go away, and then instead of having 15 days to make a movie, we had 26, 27 days to make a movie.
Yeah.
And you could see the difference. You can see the difference of when you're just given a little more time and a little more, something to make that movie. The quality gets better, it just you just have a little more time to work it. And so once we made that shift to start to get away from those guys, I think things started changing a little bit for the better. Not that I wouldn't trade that time for the world because I learned how to work really quickly and I learned how to make movies extremely fast. And I met some great people, including yourself. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. So everybody's got their journey, right? It just may be longer or different for others. So I'm still on that journey. I don't think I'm done by any means.
Oh, not even close.
I'm just saying, I mean, like it did sort of you going to your point, you do being in that sort of that filmmaking bubble, you automatically get a label slapped on you. And yeah, that was hard to sort of shake off. It was because I'm sure I was up for some other stuff and I probably didn't get it because the fact that oh, that guy works with those guys or that sort of thing. It's not that I couldn't do it. Man, I could go shoot Superman right now. Uh, will they let me? Probably not. But, I mean, well, never know. I mean, yeah, who
Listen,
knows,
times are
man?
changing. Times are changing, and I think there is this misconception of Hollywood, and Hollywood is also learning a big lessons as we speak with everything
Yeah,
that's going on. Not only I'm not talking about the crews and the actors. I'm talking about the actual studios and executives that have to
sure.
pivot tremendously to make their movies like Netflix. Netflix is making some stuff that's good, some stuff that's horrible. It's not good at all. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, are they buying independent films? Well, no, they're not buying independent films. But then I see this horrible movie that was picked up by Netflix. So there are no rules and regulations about
yeah,
any of it. I think it comes down to a perception, and this perception of And this is interesting. People who want to take control, they like to conquer and divide, right? And the way
Yeah,
they do that is they say, "Oh, you're good enough to be part of this team. So now you come here and you do this movie with us because we like you."
right.
Oh, we don't like you because you are doing this. So they're creating this thing for artists on all levels to, oh, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the studio system. Oh, I want to be part
Yeah,
of this. I want to be part of that. I want to live that life. And they're holding that carrot dangling in front of you for so long, and it's been going on for decades in Hollywood
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's still going on. And if people who are watching don't realize that it will continue to go on until
Of
you
course.
decide different, is where things change. But this is they try to divide and conquer. So thus, then you become where's your community? Your community is oh, I work with Stephen Miller. I work with this guy, that guy. This is what I do, and then it becomes this cult thing where no, you made movies with these people, realizing that dude. You know how many cinematographers will kill to be in your shoes to do what you did? And
Yeah,
what do? Not do it because, and how you, number one, what's going to happen to your career? Number two, how you going to make a living? Number three, like, fuck them. Who gives a shit what they think? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. No, you're right. I mean, it's like, what do? You get in a movie and you're like, well, I'm an artist. I don't do movies like that. I mean, come on, man. It's like it's an opportunity to move up. It's another opportunity to work with, you know, famous movie stars you admire. And it's also it's another door opening. And I just looked at it like that. What can I bring to this project? What can I do that I do to elevate my game and elevate this film? And I just tried to do that every time I stepped foot on a movie set, regardless of what it was. I mean, I remember I did this movie with Steven, it was called Southern Fury. Then again, they changed the name and called it Arsenal. Whatever. I don't know how that worked. But anyway, um, uh, the cool thing was that, like, oh yeah, we had 14 days to make the movie. That was probably one of the most like rewarding experiences doing that movie I've ever had on a film set. And then we had like Nicolas Cage and Jonathan Sheck and Adrian Grenier, and it was just a blast, man. I mean, we just we realized, okay, well, if we got 14 days, we really can't do a lot of dolly shots. We can't do this, we can't do that. So let's just go raw dog gritty with it and do the whole thing handheld and just give it a style and that was it. And that's how that movie worked because that's what you have to do to get it done. You know,
Interesting.
if you're not given any time to do it and you're not giving you can't go back and you only have this Nicolas Cage for a day or two or whatever, then you better go in having a plan and just get it done. But in the meantime, while you're getting it done, it still has to look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I wouldn't trade that for anything. And now,
No.
good thing is like, out of all those movies, each one of those films, it was a blessing, and each one of those films was such a challenge that I learned from. I mean, I still to this day, I will still. Last year, I worked on a movie where I had a scene on a bus. I still to this day, I shot a whole movie on a bus. They're like, really? And then I tell them the story and whatnot. But um, it was almost like traumatic scars being on that bus for 3 weeks, man. I was just like, walls coming in. It was tough, but we did it. But I take that with me. I mean, I remember that movie. That was a movie, really, honestly, and not just saying this just because we were on this. We worked on it. That movie started a lot of things for me. I'm so grateful for that. And to this day, people still talk to me about that movie. They always love that movie. Oh, I saw that movie Heist. I love that movie.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna come on record and say this. It was the best EFO film ever made. The most stars that they've ever had in a film.
Yeah, yeah,
And I believe Grindstone extended their contract because of that movie.
I believe it. Yeah, because I think it was on the burner. And think about that. Think about that movie. Like we had Robert De Niro, but look who's else career. took off from that movie. Everybody went off to do something. I mean, like everybody's career was going, but it was in everybody was at a different level, right? Dave Bautista had just come off of Guardians of the Galaxy. So he had the whole world open to him, right? So his career was taking off. Jeffrey Dean Morgan had just, he'd been doing these roles. He'd done Watchmen, he'd done all these things, but he just had his career was just starting to go. He hadn't done Walking Dead yet, or he had done Walking Dead, I think. And then it was starting to go even more. Morris Chestnut was starting to get his own thing going on, and Gina Carano. So it's like all of these actors we got those people all at one place at the same time, and then from now, boom, their career, they all just went off and did their own
It's
thing.
unbelievable. You know, I have a bittersweet thing with that film. There was a lot of things that did not go right for that film, uh,
Hmm.
but there's also a lot of things that went right, right? I'll start with the fact of just a general high level look at this. But the original screenplay was based in Las Vegas. It was a very clever cat and mouse film, and everybody loved the screenplay. It was just a matter of time when that movie was going to get made. It wasn't
Right.
if it was going to get made. And when EFO decided to move on it, they gave the script to De Niro. De Niro liked it, wanted to be part of it, and after they said okay, but he had notes. Then they hired Scott to come on board. Then Scott brought in Max Adams, who decided to take credit for the entire thing, which is absurd to me. But there's the bittersweet part of all this. So, and there's some things that went down. It was just like, okay, like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
try to focus on the positive here rather than the negative.
Right.
But the film itself was extremely clever. It was a mindful action thriller. You had to think about what was happening place.
Yeah.
Um, and then the movie comes out, and for whatever reason, that the location goes from Las Vegas to Georgia on a riverboat. The casino becomes a riverboat casino because
Yeah.
of limitations of the budget and everything else. Okay, no problem. The bus. Uh, did you read the original screenplay?
I don't think I ever got the original screenplay, which I
Okay.
would have loved to have read. I would have loved to have read.
Bus 757 was Usual Suspects, is what it was. It turned out to be this other action chasing the bus scene. The bus itself, the guys who stole the bus put it on a tarp in the middle of the desert, negotiating with the cops as this was going down. There was no bus chase. There was
Oh
no.
my goodness.
There was this major. There was a airplane tarmac in the middle of the desert. There was a train that was going by. There was all these elements that come in the end of the movie where the main guy gets away, like Jeffrey Dean did get away.
Right, right.
But all that was taken out. And then when the movie comes out, a reviewer says basically tears it down. It's a B movie. It's unrealistic, chasing a bus. The cop would never do that. I'm like, bro, really? Like that wasn't the fucking first script anyway. But there I am. I have no choice because they wanted me to share credit with what's his
Max.
name, Max,
Yeah.
and I don't have any issues with Max. I think Max is talented with what he does. He was put in a position, and it was just awkward. The whole thing was awkward. So it was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that was going down. But the movie itself, because of De Niro, because of Jeffrey Dean, because of Batista, it became a different animal. And it, to me, I would only think, what if those three were in the original script? Oh my God. It would have been
Yeah.
Usual Suspects. It would have been a
Oh
whole
man, that's
different thing.
crazy.
And it
That's
changed.
crazy.
And the director, Scott, was so worried about if I was going to interject as an actor, as a writer in his daily shootings. It was hilarious. I was like, bro, I'm not gonna. I know what you got to do, but he was nervous because he didn't know me, and he didn't know me as an actor. He didn't know me as a creative. I said, look, this is kind of a goodwill hunting for me. I'm gonna leave you alone and let you do what you got to do, and I'll stay the fuck out of your way. And I did that. And I think at the
You
end of
did.
the shoot,
You did.
I left him alone. As a matter of fact, when he was shooting, when you guys were doing main units and the police station, rest in peace, Adrian. Remember him?
I do. Yeah. What a great guy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Our
yeah,
second unit
yeah.
director. Yeah.
he passed away very young.
Yeah.
Adrian was shooting. We were shooting the bus sequences where my character was basically getting injected via the IV and all that, all this pickup
Yep.
stuff. And I helped basically put that together with Adrian because the extras weren't listening, and I just kind of snapped at one of the old man, the extras, the black guy, and is a great guy, but
I remember. Yeah.
I helped shape that and really contributed to what Scott was doing in the main room. And when the shoot was over, he hugged me. He goes, "Thank you so much, man." Like he was just like it's like, but he didn't know any better dealing with me. So that was it. So long story short, there's a bittersweet with Bus 657, and
Sure.
after the fact, similar things of what you went through, I went through with the same crew, and it was challenging. It was challenging with meetings. It was challenging as a reputation. It was challenging of being judged. It was continuous. But the reality is, you and I made a film with De Niro and Batista and Jeffrey Dean Morgan and others, and that's going to be in the history books for the rest of your life and my life, and that's the end of
That's
that.
right. That's right. I mean, you can say I did it and we did it and it was great. Yeah. So I
It, it,
appreciate
it
that.
was it was great. We've talked so much about the chops of the business and the things that you're going through.
Mhm.
Now, what makes you pick a certain camera? What makes you pick a certain lens for a
Mhm.
project?
It's always a story, and then depending on whether it's a large outdoor story or a contained inside story, I always think about the size of the camera. And then when you think about size, you got to think of the quality. And so, and then when I read the script, what emotions am I feeling? What is this an anamorphic film? Is this a spherical film? Do we want to be, handheld? Do we not want to be handheld? Do we want to move the camera? Do we not move the camera? So it's all dictated on the story and how the director feels, as well. So even though I may have, you know, my sort of ideas of what I want to bring to the story, I want to hear his as well. I want to hear what he wants to do. So I normally, I shoot a lot of anamorphic because I like it. It's a format I prefer. I just have always felt anamorphic can be used in certain different ways. Um, and not every story's called for it, but for me, the ones I just normally tend to gravitate to, it just seems like, oh, this seems right for this movie. It just seems right for this movie. So I tend to, I'll use the Area Alexa, whether it's the Mini or the 35 or the LF. And I've shot a few movies on the Red as well. I mean, I know we did the Red on Bus 657, and I did a werewolf movie with Stephen Miller on the Red, and I think we did Deadlock on the Red as well. All these different movies, I'll use it. Nowadays, man. I mean, the cameras are so good that like it's really a taste thing. It's like Red, Alexa, this. I don't know. I mean, it's like it's everything. It's just really
Yeah.
what really works the aesthetic of the story. So yeah, I mean, I try to tend to use the script as sort of like the springboard to jump into the project and say, okay, we're going to use this camera, these lenses for this, or use these cameras for this.
So it sounds like you have had a pretty good relationship with Stephen Miller, and you guys seem to have a
Yeah,
shorthand on how to
yeah.
there's a nice collaboration that's going on. Why do you think that is versus other directors you work with?
Um, I think um because the first go we did, we just sort of knew because we knew it was a very limited time. We had to work very quickly together. So immediately we couldn't clash heads. We had to like get it done, but also make it good. And so I think we both jumped into this thing and said, all right, let's go. And from that moment, it just worked out and we got along and we like a lot of the same movies. And so that helped it, a lot of the same directors. So I think that had a lot to do with it, and having
Uh,
to learn to work fast with each other. And he's pretty quick, and I was pretty, and he can make decisions fast, and so that's what it was.
that's interesting. And your experience with Scott, was that like the different type, obviously different person, different type of experience?
hmm Yeah, no, it was different, just because everybody's different, and Scott had his way of doing things, and he was a little more, I'd say, opinionated on certain particular things, but like he
Mm,
would want to be more time with the actors, or he would
mm,
want to do, you know. more on this, or less of this, or whatever. Scott's a very like, I remember him being a very like, you know big in the post side of things. Steven and I, we would shoot for the edit, because he's an editor. So it was different, and that sort of things. They found a lot of the story in the post production, whereas Steven and I sometimes would know what we were doing, and just we would add to, oh, if I could get a shot of this, I could add to this. So it was different in that sense.
Did Steven also shoot music videos?
I think he did a few. I think he did a few coming up. I know he came through the horror camp. It's like he did horror movies before he did
Mhm.
action movies. So,
Got
and
it.
he was pretty successful at it too. He did some successful
Yeah,
horror movies.
I like Steven's character. I think he's a good director. Have you ever had a situation, and this is something that I've dealt with myself, directing a film, where is the line between picking a shot and being in the sync with the director, or just doing the shot and not being in sync with the director?
I've had both. I've been in both situations. It's
Love
weird.
to hear about it. Yeah.
Um, uh, like, so let's see. If I think being in sync and understanding the shot, what's going to lay out, that's the best, because it's funny. It takes from the first one, the other one, you just do a shot, and then you don't know. Sometimes you don't know where you're going to go next, or you kind of know, but you have to then get the director on the ride with you from that shot to say, hey, listen, if I do this, then this will unfold, and then their mind will open up. Then they'll understand, oh, I see what you're doing. Sometimes it doesn't go well. So sometimes you're like, you have to sort of let me draw it out for you. So it's this, and this. Even though I have it written on a shot list, they may not understand. Well, I thought you were going to go over here. I thought you were going to go there. It's like, no, no, no. I'll put a nice wide shot up or something, and then they see, oh, okay. And I said, listen, let this play out for the entirety to this point, and watch what happens. And then from that moment, once they see that, then the ideas will come. Oh, I see where you're going. You're going to go. Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay, okay. And I've done it to where I've set up a camera and they're on the other side of the room. Like, oh, what about over here? And you're looking. You're like, what would you want to look at that for? That's rancid. You don't want to look at that thing. You know, not understanding like windows and light and all of that. When they're looking into a corner where there's nothing interesting at all, or any of that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's it.
Which is fine. There's certain movies that do that, but there's other movies that you still aesthetically want to keep that going. And then there's times where you just like, you both are simpatico, where you're like, yeah, here, 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 boom, and it's done. So I've been on both sides of that coin. So it's fun to navigate.
Oh my God. Do you think everybody should be a director?
No, I do not. I think there's some directors that
Oh my
think they're
God.
directors, but they're not really directors. They they're just playing director rather than being a director.
I've talked to a couple of directors on this. I'm going to talk to some more. I've realized that the thing that they have in common is the knowledge of how to make a film, no matter what film you're making.
Sure, sure.
It's a process, whether you are the Mario Andretti of director or you're some schlep from wherever. If they understand the process of filmmaking and working with others, in cahoots of what's going on and picking up
Right.
the team that is behind it, like Jesse Johnson was saying, when I get a project and I get a go ahead with it, I have to still sell my team, the people, the cinematographer, why I want to make this movie. So there's
Right.
an
Sure.
understanding of why are we doing this? What do you think as we stand? I know there's some challenges right now in the film industry. I get that. But creatively, on a bigger scale and then obviously on a personal scale, where do you see the film industry heading where we're at?
I hate to say this, but I think movie stars are becoming less and less important now. Unfortunately, because I don't, the kids, the youth, they watch TikTok, they watch YouTube, they watch, Instagram. A lot of these kids don't know who Robert De Niro is, nor less do they care who Robert De Niro is. And I think that, and I hate that. I hate saying that, but it's like, oh, that's a TikTok star, or that's a YouTube star. Oh, that guy's cool. Yeah, and, we came up in the golden age of like, movie stars. I think that's diminishing. I think honestly, like, good stories are diminishing, man. Like, just they're there. It's just we're I don't I don't think every movie has to be real and every movie has to have some social justice message or some message of like this has to be important or that. I mean, what happened to the days of like, can I just sit down and be entertained? Like, we need more of that. I don't want to go to a movie in a way that's like this movie pisses me off. I don't want to. I don't want to spend 2 hours of my life to be upset and mad. Depending on what the subject matter is. I want like the feeling when I came out of Top Gun 2. You know what I mean? That movie is straight entertainment done well. And I think movies are missing that. I don't think every movie has to be a freaking message or get your point across or that's the problem with movies right now. I personally, I think Hollywood is forgetting that it's not just Los Angeles and New York. It's a big country, right? And let alone the world. And some people just want popcorn, man. And some people want to be stimulated. I'm not saying you can't make those movies. You can. There's a time and place, but I'm seeing more of this like just way deep, super intellectual films that just don't need to be that heavy. They don't need to always have this message where I think they forget. People are forgetting movies were an escape. They're escape of your life, that you want to see a story that will move you, right? Take you from the seat and inject you into the screen and slightly, put you back down, gently put you back down. So you forget where you were. How many times are you watching a movie? Like, this is a question for you. How many times in a movie theater, you forget where you are? You fucking are always aware you're in the movies these days, right? Because the fucking movie's no good because they're not doing that anymore. They're not doing that anymore. And it's like the last time that happened to me was Dune Part 2.
Okay.
That was the last time that happened to me. Okay. I sat in that movie theater. I like Denis Villeneuve, whatever. I sat down and I was into that movie and I forgot where I was. I was so into that film and then I put it back down. I mean, but ask anybody. Yeah, escapism. Ask anybody. When was the last time you forgot when you were watching a movie? You forgot where you were watching the movie. It doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anymore. Where is that? That's what I'm saying. We have to find what that is. That's what people need to do because it's this or they're doing this on their phone while they're watching a movie or they're being distracted or whatever. There's too many things. It's like put all that away, eat your popcorn, watch the movie, forget where you were. And they have to put a better product up there, man. I haven't been happy with like what I've been seeing. And, I'm not saying everything has to be a popcorn movie. Yeah, you can have thought-provoking, beautiful stories of anything. But it's just, we need more of that, that's just the way I feel.
Honestly, I think it was Top Gun too. That's when I was really into it. That was it. I can't think. I don't know if I saw Dune 2 and I saw Dune 1. I don't think I saw Dune 2 yet. But listen, these movies that we're giving examples of, they're $100 million movies.
Yeah.
I mean, those are challenging to make as an independent film. The problem, and I'm going to pivot here just a quick second to the business of this. The problem of making a film on that level is that you have over 100 cooks in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
You can start off as, oh, I got so and so to star in it. I got this much money. This guy's going to direct it. This guy's going to shoot it. By the time these other people and entities come in, the guy directing is gone. The guy shooting is gone. The star is replaced. The story's changed. This is the problem with making films. Now, some of the streamers have been better at letting the filmmaker tell their story lately. I think the last 2, 3 years has been the case. But prior to that, how do you navigate that? If you're willing to, like I know a writer, he's optioned a couple of things, sold a couple of things, never made a movie. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna write about this podcast in my journal, and I'm gonna talk about how I would love to talk to Cox one day, and I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put a stamp. I'm gonna get a copyright on that shit, and I'll never talk to Cox. So from a perspective of a filmmaker, which is what I am, a storyteller filmmaker,
Yeah.
I've decided to personally not really inject myself into that equation because you can spend 10 years of your life and nothing happens because there are other agendas at play that want to do what they want to do at the time they want to do it in, etc. This one big manager producer that I was talking to, he said this to me, and this is food for thought for anybody who is making movies.
Right.
He said, I want to find a great script. So if you wrote a great script, that's what I want. My job is, for me, I think the words were to basically take it from you, give you some money, make you go away so I can control the process. I don't want the guy next to me doing that. I want to be the one doing that.
Yeah.
There's your whole story about movies. So, it is what it is. Now, when it comes to Millennium, EFO, any of these cats, the one thing I'm going to say is I agree with some of the things you've said. They did make the movies. Now, could they movies been 100 times better? Absolutely, they could have been 100 times better. The industry shifts and people look down on, Avi Lerner was the first guy who started doing these kinds of movies. Me and my producing partners and I flew to Bulgaria, saw their studios over
I
there.
remember that. I remember when you did that. I
Yeah,
remember
and I
that.
was like, I was going to shoot this film. The movie, I've had a couple of stars, not as big as I wanted to attach to get a green light on this. And I think I even talked to you about it once. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is that you have to take initiative as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer, as whatever it is, to fight the battle that you have to fight in order to
Yeah.
get what you want to get, in order to see the final product.
No, it's absolutely true. It's like, going back to what you're saying, like I have a buddy of mine who I've worked with, this writer director John Swab, and he lives in Oklahoma, or he's from Oklahoma, and they didn't really have a film industry there, and he basically kind of helped get the tax incentive going. I think the only other guy there that was making stuff was Sterling Hargrove, was the guy who does Reservation Dogs, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he'd done his thing, and then John had made these movies he made a lot of movies with Frank Grillo, and he would just make these movies, and he would get the money and do it, and he wouldn't have a lot of money to do it, but he'd have like $2 million, $5 million, $4 million, but he did it, but he controlled it, he produced it, he wrote it, he directed it, and he raised the money. Even though they're smaller, he controlled those things, and he just did one year before last, and it's out in theater, or it's out in the festival run now. It's called King Ivory, and it's about the fentanyl trade that's going on between the cartels, the Indian Brotherhood, Native American Brotherhood, and the police, and how that all works and how it funnels through Oklahoma and what it does to people's lives. It's a really amazing movie, but for some reason, that movie didn't cost a lot of money to make. But for some reason, somebody from CAA saw it and they got all excited because it went to Venice, and it made a big splash of Venice. And so now he's like getting talk of the town. But that's something to where, doing these movies, it ended up working for him. So it can work. And now he's going through the process of what it's like to meet with all these people. And he just says, you know, the meetings that you go through and all of that. It's just a lot of talk, and he wants action, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got three things to say. The first thing is the fentanyl. Our movie, Wages of Sin, the director himself, his uncle had died in an overdose, and he wanted
Yeah.
to he wanted to talk about that. So we injected the storyline into fentanyl into our movie, and it there's the funniest thing. I was at the ARPA Film Festival, and the film was nominated for Best Screenplay, and I was sitting there, and there was all these, producers there and all that good stuff, and they called my name as Best Screenwriter. I'm like,
That's amazing. That's
and I
amazing.
was just like, "Are you wow?" So I went up, and I was extremely shocked. I said, "I've been doing this for 20 years," uh, uh, but I think what I'm trying to say is that now it just got accepted to another film festival, a bigger film festival in Los Angeles. We're wrapping up our distribution now in the next week,
Yeah.
but everything has changed. The industry has changed. Where 2 years ago, this kind of movie would sell for probably 5 or 6 times more easily. Now it's taken to be less. So
Right.
that's the first thing I'm going to say. The other thing
Right.
is regarding meetings, having meetings. The cavalry is not coming. Meaning, I'm going to meet with this guy. I'm going to meet with that guy. I'm going to meet with this guy.
Yeah,
And that's the meetings. And then nothing
yeah,
happens
yeah,
90% of the time, right?
yeah.
Everybody wants to jump into this basket of starting to go. Oh, I want to be part of this because it's starting to go. That's the agent's
Right,
job
right.
to. And then the last thing I'm going to say is like when it comes to just these guys making movies, it's like if you don't take the initiative, if you don't believe in what you're doing, then it's over.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. It's you have to. Yeah, you stick to your guns, man, because if you don't, they'll take it and dissect it 100 different ways, and you'll have this beautiful thing that you thought was this great thing and turn into this hodgepodge of like Frankenstein script that you're just like, what happened here? What happened to my movie?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and they have no problem doing that.
none. And they say something that it's not personal. Well, if you
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
seven years to get a film off the ground, you sacrifice a lot of things in your life, and it's not personal. What is coming up for you? Tell me what's going on.
December, I just wrapped a movie with Mel Gibson, which was amazing. Never been able to work with him. Finally got the opportunity to work with him. He was incredible to work with. And that movie's coming out. That should be a lot of fun. It's called Mermaid. It's a metaphor. It's not about a mermaid. It's a metaphor. And then I think they may have changed the title. It was good because the reason why I wanted to do the movie, because it wasn't one of these things where Mel Gibson works for 3 days. He was on the run of show, and that's
Oh
what
wow.
made it that's why I wanted to do it. And it was like a 23-day movie, 23 days, 24 days, something like that. And he was on every day. And so to me,
Wow.
that was just
That's a big deal.
invaluable. It was a big deal. And we were staying in the same building, and we were going to dinners on the weekends, and we'd watch UFC, and we would talk about movies. He was so open to talking about movies. And he even I asked about projects that I had heard about in the pipe work for him. He told me about Passion sequel. He told me about Lethal Weapon 5. He told me about this other um, amazing script he had that he's letting me read. He sent me the script. It was really cool. And the guy's like, I love his work. I'm so honored that I get to work with him. So there was that. And then I have a movie that I did. I did shot in Nepal a few years back in 23. And that's finally starting to do the festival rounds. It's actually in right now. It's in Rotterdam right now, Rotterdam Film
Wow.
Festival. So the director's there. I wish I was there. I couldn't be there. But that film is about Tibetan filmmaker. Interesting story. I met this guy during the pandemic online. We chatted a few times online. And when he finally came to Los Angeles, I met him in 2020. And then for 3 years, we talked about working together. And he talked about this movie. And he's a Tibetan filmmaker. And basically, what it is he has this story. He told me about this story of this group of men called the Chushi Gondruk, which was basically a sort of like ragtag army that was made. This is all a true story. Was made formed by the Tibetan armies, and they fought the PLA, invading China and Tibet.
Wow.
And their first major thing was to get the Dalai Lama out of Tibet and into India safely. So
Wow.
we follow their story, and it's a really incredible story. And we filmed up in the mountains in Nepal, and I wish we could have filmed in Tibet, but obviously you can't because the Chinese occupation. It was an incredible story. Didn't have a lot to do it, but I did it because the story just kind of blew me away. And so filming up 15,000 feet up the sea level was pretty tough. Altitude was tough, but we did it. And yeah, man, there's that. And then right now, that's those are probably the two I think that are just doing their thing right now. And then obviously, I'm waiting to hear
Everything,
about
yeah.
other things.
Right.
But yeah,
Brandon, you mentioned something that I just realized. I know you're a big. I know you have a background in martial art, and I
yeah.
know you're a big fan of Bruce Lee. How long have you been doing this, and how does that play into you being a cinematographer?
It plays a lot actually. I started doing martial arts. I'm 50 now, but I started doing martial arts when I was 16.
Wow.
So I haven't done it in a while. I still stretch and all that, but I did it for consistently for about 18 years, you
Wow.
know, and I stopped. It helps a lot in fight scenes. it helps tremendously in fight scenes.
Mm.
And from watching a lot of movies and whatnot. And to go back to what I was saying, I have one more project that just came in my head. I forgot. I'm not trying to plug them. I'm just letting you know. So I did a film with the RZA from Wu Tang, right?
Mhm.
And we just did a film in April that he wrote. He fully produced himself. He paid for the whole thing himself because we had a bigger project we were trying to go, and it's just been in again studio hell because it's locked up in a studio and they just don't care. So he just decided, okay, I have the money, I have the means, and we made it was a personal story, so we did that. And that ties into the martial arts side because when I first did a movie with RZA, I did this movie called Cutthroat City, and I'm such an admirer of him because I loved his music and I knew he loved martial arts movies. So when I first met him, we met in a restaurant in New Orleans where we were filming the movie and literally stayed there until they stayed after hours to let us talk. And all we talked about were life, martial arts, and Bruce Lee and kung fu movies, and that was it. And so Bruce Lee's sort of way, his philosophy of life is so amazing as a human being, just let alone what he can do as a person, but just his philosophy as a human being is it's so interesting and it's so open to anything. I kind of tried to live by that. So, the martial arts also it's a way of life, but it also helps with like again, like you said, action and it's a good conversation starter. You can
Oh my
always like
God.
it's always good, and I love MMA too and all that stuff.
Listen,
So
Brandon, I've gotten to know you on a level that I never knew before.
yeah,
You and I can talk easily for another 2 hours.
of course we could.
We could totally. And I want to bring you back. I'll definitely want to bring you back.
I'd
There's
love
so
to.
much more. There's so much more to talk about. And I think there's so much that young cinematographers or other cinematographers and directors and filmmakers would learn from some of the things you've said because you have been in the trenches. You have dealt with money. You have dealt with studio. You have dealt with directors and stars. And it's one thing to hear about it. It's another thing to actually go through the process. The last thing I'm going to say to you, Mr. Brandon Cox, is that I am fully aware what you did for me on Deadlock. I am fully aware how you saved that one scene that we were shooting. I know what was going on behind the scenes, and the reason these other cats didn't get their way was because of you. So I am grateful for your friendship and for your artistry in that. So thank you, man.
Yeah, I would have done it 100 times over again because it just was the right thing to do.
I
And
appreciate it.
we can say that we can save that story for the next time
I
because
would
that would be
love to.
fun. That would be
Oh my
fun
God.
to,
We'll
to
just
break
do
that
one
down.
on Deadlock.
I'm down. I'm down. I'd love that. We should
Uh,
pull Kane in there for that one. That'd be fun. Get like
oh,
the trifecta.
I think we should do a Kane and you. Listen,
Okay.
Mr. Cox, Mr. Brandon Cox, thank you so much for coming on. I'm a big admirer. I'm totally grateful for having you on my first major feature film and having you on this podcast.
I'm honored, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.